Chapter 3: The Sense of How We Feel Inside. My sister Carrie and I are very close. She lived in upstate New York with her then husband when she got pregnant. It killed me not to be in the same city, let alone the same state, so that I could share the experience. My mom stayed with her just before and after the baby was born. One evening, I got a call from her. Carrie doesn't know this, but the doctor told me the sex of the baby. She's having a girl. I hung up the phone, got into my car, and headed straight to Mervyn's to buy girls' baby clothes. I bought so much stuff that it took a large box to send it. The package arrived a few days after my niece's birth. Rebecca was beautiful, and I was so happy for my sister. As Rebecca grew, there were signs that something wasn't typical about her. She had delayed development in speech and toileting, along with sensory issues. She was born in the late 80s when autism wasn't getting as much public awareness as it is today. Looking back over the years, all the signs of autism were there, we just didn't know. My sister moved back to California when Rebecca was a toddler, allowing me to share this journey with her. Rebecca is now in her mid-30s, which comes with its own issues, and I share conservatorship with Carrie. I know firsthand the joys and sorrows of having a special needs human as a close family member. While Rebecca's brain might be neurodivergent, her heart overcompensates with the love and joy she provides. I have learned so much from her, one of the most important lessons being interoception's role in our physical and emotional well-being. "Rebecca, are your feet cold?" I cry from the living room. One of her care providers called in sick, so I was filling in for a shift one wintry day. "I didn't know," which is how she says "I don't know." She responded from her TV room, where she was watching a movie. The older house she lives in doesn't have the best insulation. My feet are cold and I'm wearing shoes. Granted, I'm constantly freezing in the wintertime, but it's chilly outside, and so are the hardwood floors. And she isn't wearing her slippers or socks. So I go into her room and feel her feet. They're like ice cubes. "They are freezing cold, Rebecca. You need to put on socks." This conversation typically results in a massive huff because I interrupted her, and sometimes in a full-on meltdown, especially with certain movies or cartoons. Unfortunately, she didn't feel her cold feet, so the fact that she had ice cubes attached to her ankles didn't bother her. Why didn't she think her feet were cold and seek to get them warm? Cumulatively, sight, smell, taste, hearing, touch, and other senses are known as exteroception, or perception received from the exterior world. Interoception is how we feel inside our bodies and allows us to perceive what is happening in our interior world. It's how we catch or become aware of our feelings. The emerging science of interoception is still relatively new. The first known usage of the concept dates back to 1906 in the book The Integrative Action of the Nervous System by Charles Sherrington. The word was first used in the early 1940s, although, as with most things in science, there is still debate about the definition. However, it is widely accepted to represent our conscious experience of how we feel inside ourselves. In other words, a lot is going on all day long in our bodies, of which we have no awareness. Feeling our heartbeat 24/7 would be meaningless, let alone annoying. It is more effective to feel it pounding away after being startled. If asked to take a deep breath, you feel air flowing in and out. Otherwise, you don't notice each breath. Interoceptive signals are why we feel a pounding heart and expanding lungs. There is a feedback loop of communication between the body and brain. If your body is low on water, you drink some because your brain makes you aware of how dry your mouth is. And you stop guzzling when the brain tells you to stop by removing the urge to drink. The starting and ceasing of liquids is all because of this constant dialogue. The interchange keeps our internal systems balanced or in homeostasis. The word homeostasis comes from the Greek words for same or steady. Scientists use the word to describe a state of balance needed for living things to thrive, survive, and function correctly, such as blood sugar, body temperature, water volume, salt, and blood oxygen. Balance is essential for life. The innate intelligence of our planet is trying to maintain its balance despite human interference. Watch the Biggest Little Farm documentary for the most beautiful example of regaining balance when working with the Earth's intelligence. It is the chronicle of John and Molly Chester, who took a run-down farm and created a well-balanced ecosystem and rich soils that produce nutrient-dense foods while treating the environment and the animals with respect. The couple provides insight into what can happen when we live in harmony with the balance that Mother Earth, also known as Gaia, is constantly working to achieve. It is both enlightening and fascinating to watch. It isn't any different in our bodies. Incoming sensory signals indicate the body is cold. Our interoceptive sense now informs us to react, signaling us to take action using the feeling that we are chilly or cold. We then put on a sweater, go inside, or get under the blankets. In scientific literature, these are called homeostatic emotions. Homeostatic emotions facilitate the brain's ability to regulate the body's environment. Temperature is just one example. Other examples include thirst, hunger, muscle aches, tiredness, and any feeling that directs us to action so the body can return to its ideal state. Pangs of hunger are signals for you to eat, and fatigue signals you to sleep. You know it and you live it. Now you know the name for it. You may not think of thirst, hunger, coldness, or tiredness as an emotion, but it is when you look at what the word emotion means. According to Edom Online, emotion comes from move, a Latin word meaning move out, remove, agitate. The sense of having a strong feeling was first recorded in the 1650s and extended to any feeling by 1800. With that definition, you can see how the brain is moving or agitating you to take action, be it a drink of water or putting on a pair of socks. The same is true of all emotions. The next time you have the urge to yawn, that is an emotion. The body is tired and sucking in some air to stay awake, which is a pretty good hint that you need some rest. If you have the sensation to urinate, you are experiencing an emotion. The bladder is never completely empty, but we get sensations when it is full enough to warrant action to remove some of its contents. I don't know if yawning or urinating is considered to be emotional, but perhaps it is. As Rebecca would say, silly auntie, silliness aside, when we start to view emotions for what they are, communication from the brain to take action, it provides a different perspective when we realize it involves many aspects of life. But what about the emotions we are more familiar with? Mood, feelings, emotions, what's the difference? We are always in a state of feeling, as signaling is constantly taking place. We are just not always conscious of it. Sometimes it takes having someone ask, "How are you feeling today?" or "How you doing?" for us to notice. At times, I need to reflect on the exact word, pondering on what is going on inside of me, but it is primarily a general term like good, okay, grumpy, amazing. You get the idea. In neuroscience, affect is the collective term for describing moods and emotions. It spans the range of feeling states from pleasant, good, to unpleasant, crummy, from highly aroused, excited, to low arousal, calm. If you aren't watching your screen, I suggest you look. I am displaying an image of what is called an emotion circumplex, and it kind of gives you a better hint of what I'm talking about. Moods aren't necessarily detailed or specific, just a general state reflecting your body's condition, and can vary from day to day and from moment to moment. Our state of being can result from lingering, unresolved, or unacted feelings. How much energy we have or require can influence our mood, changing it with sleep, food, exercise, and other things that impact our body's energy level. And probably why someone invented the word hangry. When you are in pain, your mood can suffer. We can change our mood by going outside, enjoying nature, calling a good friend, or listening to music. Most importantly, our mood influences perceptions of events, groups, and people. How we create the memory pathways in the brain is based on those impressions. Remember, how we wire our neurons is how we fire future feelings and thoughts. Differences in our mood can determine how we respond to similar circumstances. If you know people who are inconsistent in how they respond at work or home, see if you can correlate this with their disposition. There are articles about the right time to interview for a job, such as mid morning or late afternoon. What if the interviewer didn't eat lunch? By mid afternoon, their lack of energy could influence their mood and their opinion of the interviewee. Awareness of your mood is huge for emotion management and one of the reasons why feelings aren't facts. For this reason, I have a whole chapter dedicated to mood management. Both homeostatic and affective emotions result in physiological responses, which are done in part via peptides. These tiny molecules act as messengers in your bloodstream, delivering instructions to your organs, skin, muscles, and other tissues, orchestrating when and what to do next. We also have the hormones and chemicals produced by the brain and body. If a mood is general, an emotion is specific. It is a physiological experience. For emotions to end up as feelings, we must be able to identify them and take some action, even if it's just acknowledging them. Emotions are considered nouns, something that we have or own, which happens when the body receives them. In comparison, feelings are verbs, the cognitive action of identifying the feeling. Just because we receive the signal doesn't mean we know what it is. In some cases, we choose to ignore them. In her blog, Is It a Feeling or Is It an Emotion? Social science researcher Carla McLaren explains it this way. It is the difference between having and knowing. An emotion is a physiological experience or state of awareness that gives you information about the world. A feeling is your conscious awareness of the emotion itself. Many people are honestly unaware that they're having an emotion. For them, the emotion and the consciousness of it are not strongly connected, and they don't even realize that they're fearful or angry or depressed. Their emotional state has become so persistent that it drags them into severe mood, or it is pointed out by somebody else. And then they can realize, oh, I guess I've been really sad about my mom, or afraid about money, or angry about work. For many people, there's a disconnect between emotion and feeling. There's no consciousness of the emotion at all. They have the emotion, but they don't know about it. The emotion is certainly there, and their behavior displays the emotion, to others at least, but they aren't feeling it clearly. Our moods are not only impacted by our physical state, but also by our emotions. Homeostatic and affective feelings can get jumbled up because the body communicates both kinds with the exact same location. Feelings in our stomach can be due to something we ate or because we're anxious. The skill comes with being able to differentiate those feelings. For example, a person I know who smokes ran out of cigarettes one night. She told me she woke up the next day feeling mad and wasn't sure why. thinking maybe she had woken up on the wrong side of the bed. I suggested that she hadn't had her morning cigarette, so she was likely experiencing signs of nicotine withdrawal, even though she thought she felt mad. After pondering the idea, she agreed. The feelings were similar for her, and she got them confused. To me, it was obvious, but because of all the things going on in her life, it wasn't apparent to her. Pointing it out allowed her to take the feeling from an affective emotion, mad for no reason, to a homeostatic one. I need a cigarette. If we assign a label to that feeling, unless a mindful effort is made to change it, we experience it with zero effort, just like the woman who needed a cigarette but thought she was mad. If an experience sparked irritation yesterday, it would do the same tomorrow and all the days afterward, unless we consciously try to change the response. As the famous physicist Max Planck said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I will also add that your mood changes how you look at things. On the other hand, if you can't or won't connect to the feeling, it won't necessarily go away, as the brain doesn't like to be ignored. When the brain needs energy, you experience homeostatic emotions known as hunger pains. Ignoring them, the aches get stronger. The same is true with affective emotions. The feelings don't go away and often get stronger when dismissed. The brain urges you to notice, even if the feeling is due to a prediction error. Now that we have covered the overall function of interoceptive signals, moving forward, for the most part, I will refer to affective emotions only as emotions. Happy or hungry, the process is the same for the brain. As described by the authors of Definition of Alexithymia, researchers Lyndon Timoney and Mark Holder explain that alexithymia is the inability to recognize or describe one's emotions. It's not a condition with a diagnosis, but more of a personality construct. Characteristics of alexithymia include a deficit in emotional awareness, social attachment, and relating to others. Compassion would be difficult, let alone empathy. It has been associated with low levels of positive well being. Research on alexithymia now extends beyond emotions. People with this condition don't know how they feel in general, which means homeostatic emotions are also impacted. London researchers Brewer, Cook, and Bird found that alexithymia applies to both affective and homeostatic emotions. While it was originally assumed that the interoceptive deficit in alexithymia is specific to emotion, recent evidence suggests that alexithymia may also be associated with difficulties perceiving some non-affective interoceptive signals, such as one's heart rate. It is, therefore, possible that the impairment experienced by those with alexithymia is common to all aspects of interoception, such as interpreting signals of hunger, arousal, proprioception, tiredness, and temperature. While this research was focused on a specific condition, the sense of how we feel inside works the same for everyone. And while alexithymia may seem dire, increasing interoceptive awareness can be a way to expand those internal connections, improving positive well being. Emotions and health are tightly knit together. We will explore this further when I share more about our internal messenger, the peptide. There has been more and more information available about the relationship of well-being to what and when we eat, as well as our levels of exercise and the amount of sleep we receive. Now we have another tool for good health, developing interoceptive awareness. Interoceptive signals are saying, I need you to do something. Our ability to connect with interoceptive alerts is related to our level of awareness. For some, The step from emotion to feeling is effortless. For others, it is not. Because my niece doesn't have a typical brain, she doesn't always connect to the signals that her feet are cold enough to need socks, requiring my sister and I to check on her feet. Just because she doesn't have a typical brain doesn't mean she can't increase her interoceptive awareness. Feelings as a learned skill. My interest in learning about interoception led me to discover Kelly Mailer. She is a seasoned occupational therapist and creator of the Interoception curriculum, a step-by-step framework for developing mindful self-regulation. She works with people who can be significantly emotionally dysregulated due to autism or other neurological disorders. She trains fellow therapists to help their clients develop interoceptive awareness for self-regulation or the ability to identify and manage their feelings. Making the distinction between needing to eat versus feeling upset can be life-changing for the neurodiverse. It changes their actions and reactions. I have followed Kelly for the past few years and am happy to see her receive increased recognition for her work. Mailer has shown that neurodiverse people can improve their interoceptive awareness, but she is not alone in her work. Lisa Quat and a team of researchers published their finding to see if a novel therapy they named Aligning Dimensions of Interoceptive Experience, or ADIE, reduces anxiety in autistic adults. The results, published in The Lancet, found that after 3 months, interoceptive training targeting anxiety in autistic adults had a markedly lower anxiety incidence than in a control group. The control group had a 16% recovery rate from their anxiety disorder, compared to a 31% recovery with those who received interoceptive training. That is huge, given the difficulty autistic individuals can have managing their feelings. Interoceptive training develops emotional granularity. In the paper, Unpacking Emotion Differentiation, Transforming Unpleasant Experience by Perceiving Distinctions in Negativity, researcher Todd Kashdan and his team from Northeastern and George Mason Universities noted, according to recent research, upon experiencing intense distress, individuals who experience their emotions with more granularity are less likely to resort to maladaptive self-regulatory strategies such as binge drinking, aggression, and self-injurious behavior, show less neural reactivity to rejection, and experience less severe anxiety and depressive disorders. These findings shed light on how people's emotion differentiation skill can transform negative emotions and stressful experiences. Emotional granularity refers to the level of detail in our emotions. Those were not two words I imagined together, as it may be true for you. So I will explain it using my go-to example of the bagel. Picture yourself going into a bagel store and saying, "I would like a bagel, please." The staff's response is likely, "What kind?" If you have ever been to a bagel shop in New York, you better be ready with a detailed answer before you go to the head of the line. If you can't tell the person on the other side of the counter what you want and how you want it prepared, like a salt bagel toasted with scrambled eggs, cheddar cheese, and ham, you end up with a plain bagel, or even worse, back out on the street hungry with nothing to ease those cravings. There are so many varieties of bagels and different ways to prepare them, but you only know a plain bagel. How frustrating would it be to end up in life with a plain bagel every time because you didn't know the specifics of what you wanted? Even knowing what you don't want helps you narrow down the selection. Now imagine that the bagel is an emotion, like anger. Anger becomes your go-to reaction, like always ending up with a plain bagel. All because you can't identify the feeling differently. Just like a bagel can have different seeds, cheeses, and seasonings, anger can have different emotional flavors like annoyance, displeasure, irritation, indignation, chagrin, ire, outrage, or miffed. Close your eyes and imagine a situation that makes you angry and another that annoys you. Does it feel different? Simply put, having more words gives your emotions subtle and not so subtle distinction and assists with increased interoceptive awareness. It is an emotional intelligence skill, just like chefs learning to improve their competence in the kitchen. My husband and I live in a food and wine mecca. We have more than one friend who is a professional chef. It's always fun to watch them cook. Their palates have been developed to such degree that they can distinguish the flavors in a dish. Too much of this, not enough of that, or they need to add something else that makes whatever they're concocting even better. Some chefs are born with an inherent ability to distinguish the various flavors in dishes, while others work harder to develop their palate. The same is true of our emotional palate. The more skilled we are at distinguishing the flavors of our emotions, the better we manage them. And some people are naturally better at it. It comes more easily to them. There is a correlation between the physical response of the body, like heartburn and the pain of sadness in our hearts. Therapies and the work of occupational therapists like Kelly Mailer are seeking to help the neurodiverse increase their conscious connection to the two and identify between them. Noticing how we feel in our bodies can be challenging for anyone. We don't have to be on the spectrum to get physical cues wrong or not notice them at all. How do we develop interoceptive awareness? By taking notice of what is going on in our bodies. That could feel uncomfortable or embarrassing for some. If that is you, relax. I won't tell anyone that you're working on it. Exercise, practicing awareness. I recommend you stop listening for a few days to practice interoceptive awareness. Picking one or more exercises to complete as often as possible during the day. Number 1, feel your heartbeat. Don't take your pulse. Focus on the thumps of your heart and see if you can feel it beat. Once you feel your heart pounding, try to count the beats. For fun, you can always use a timer and count how many beats you feel for 30 seconds. Then put your fingers on your pulse and count again. It is interesting to see how far off you are. Number 2, whether eating or drinking, inhale the aromas before your first sip or a bite. What do you smell? Take a couple of bites or sips. What are the flavors you're picking up? Can you distinguish them? The amount of salt or types of seasoning. Is it sweet, sour? Can you tell if the product is fresh or frozen, undercooked or overcooked, too much of one ingredient or not enough of another? Notice the texture in your mouth. Do your best to describe what it feels like. Even liquids can be thin or viscous. It's the difference between a broth and a cream-based soup. After you consume it, how does your body feel? Number 3, can you identify how you feel while working, listening to music, reading, or watching TV? Just take a moment to notice and label the feeling. Is it a mood or an emotion? Did the entertainment change your feelings? How do they differ from before you started? Number 4, before you get up in the morning, focus on parts of your body and how they feel. You can take as long or as little time as you need. Just work your way down the body from the top. If mornings don't work, do it at night before bed. If the list is too long, pick a major body part and see if you can describe the feeling, starting from the top. It could be achy, stiff, numb, or cold. Try to hone in on the exact feeling. Here is the list: head, neck, shoulders, arms, hands, fingers, upper back, chest, stomach, lower back, groin, buttocks, thighs, legs, feet, toes. These exercises are not a measurement of interoceptive awareness, but a way to connect to your body's signals. Because awareness is specific to an individual, I don't believe that it can ever truly be measured. We can't get inside of each other's heads. For instance, pain scales give providers an indication of how much pain we are in, but it isn't necessarily an accurate measurement. My pain level 5 could be a 7 for someone else. But when asked, where does it hurt? We can hopefully point to where we have the pain and describe it. That is interoceptive awareness. Signals received from within the body and the outside world are the ingredients our brain uses to construct our emotions. Just like a chef uses ingredients to create great and not so great dishes. It is now time to reveal our inner chef.